and thanks for joining me here with
Vadim.
Sasha.
Ira.
And to make me a Russian student, they called me Masha. And this is our special podcast, Life in the Box! And we have three main topics that we're going to go over with you today. None of them that I can say correctly, but we're going to try. And we're going to start out with Bellini.
Bellini.
Yes.
Bellini, though, were historical tales that were meant to kind of bring the Rus together as a whole and to kind of instill patriotism in them. And they centered around a hero or a bogatyr who was altruistic in their way of defending the Rus. That was what the stories were all about, defending the Rus. Just for that, they were all humble. And in all the stories, the bogatyrs were generally physically imposing big guys. So that's how they always won, was they were just big and strong. Except for Yosha Popovich, he was kind of the exception. He was smaller, but he relied on his wits and kind of cleverness to win the battles.
And there were three main ones, right?
Yes, there were Ilya Muromets, Yosha Popovich, and then Nikita.
Sabrina Nikitin.
You did it.
Mm-hmm. Points. All right. And they really defended Rus, right? It was all about not just being heroic, but defending Rus.
Yeah,
specifically.
They were all destined to fight for the Rus, and the ones who weren't typically died, such as Ilya Muromets' brother. He wasn't meant to defend the Rus, so he was destined to die.
What's something fun about his brother?
He kept his wife in a box.
That's where the name comes from. Oh, and the enemies in most Bellini, they had animal features, didn't they?
Yep, they were typically zoonanthropomorphic, meaning that they had animal characteristics kind of to dehumanize them in a way, but really just to make you so you didn't really feel bad that they died, and you kind of felt that they deserved it. That was kind of the typical use of zoonanthropomorphism.
That word is zoanthropomorphic, and I can say that. And leaving with that, we're going to move on to historical songs with Ira.
Thank you, Masha. So historical songs were popular starting in the 16th century and lasted into the 20th century. They depicted popular feeling, and they came after Bellini, and they were a little bit different than Bellini in that they were a little bit more historically accurate, and they depicted more recent history. Another feature of historical songs is that they also depicted the destruction of a Russian city by a Russian leader, as opposed to the Bellini, where the enemy was always foreign. And they were popular under Ivan IV, or Ivan the Terrible, and Peter the Great, and the songs depicted them as kind and just czars. So they were a little bit more historically accurate, and one good example of this was the song called Swedish Kings Want to Capture Poltava, which was an actual battle that happened in the city of Poltava. I think I'm saying that right. And so there was the really popular one called Ivan the Terrible and His Sons, but also the song about Pugachev. And I want to know your guys' thoughts on that song in particular and his interaction with Count Pan.
Do you want to start that off?
Oh, yeah. So you got Pugachev, who's in real life a Russian revolutionary figure. And what's interesting about him is he came from the people, and really the only successful revolutionary figures in Russia did come from the folk people. And so that's kind of what made him really cool. And he came over, and eventually he was captured, and this whole song is about the people's interpretation of what happened when he met this count.
Count, yeah.
Yeah, and in this story, the count is terrified of him and cowering away from him and everything.
Yeah.
And it shows how courageous the people thought he was and how much power he had.
It's kind of almost like bordering on propaganda against the Tsars and the state and the military.
Yeah.
Just kind of say,
Uh-huh.
this is what your military and your kind of people are like, and this is what revolutionaries are like. They're great, they're brave, but you guys are cowards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then, in real life, we think, it didn't pan out that way. The count, at one point, slapped Pugachev,
Yeah.
and he was disrespectful and stuff like that.
And historical songs were not always completely accurate, but they always depicted popular feeling, and this is a good example of the popular feeling at the time of Pugachev.
Okay, so tell me, what's reflecting popular feeling about getting Ivan to kill his kid?
Because, so, Ivan the Terrible, and we don't call him Ivan the Terrible, he was respected, but part of being respected was being feared. And he was very patriotic, and the killing of his son was a sacrifice made not only for Rus, but to protect the reputation of Ivan.
Mm-hmm. And in real life, his son died. This is weird. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I'm saying things out loud, but
There's some contradictions there, yes.
Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, and that brings us to our third and last topic, Skamaroshina.
Close. Skamaroshina. So the Skamaroshina were kind of parody songs that were made by the Skamaroki, who are kind of like our jesters. And these songs typically made fun of Bellini, and they were popular between the 11th and the 17th centuries. And the Skamaroki, they performed these songs in like bright costumes and animal costumes, and they usually played instruments, and they had like a bear in the troupe.
What the life of the party.
And so they performed mostly for the people, and their job was to travel and perform these songs. And they were also really popular with Ivan IV or Ivan the Terrible, and he had them in his court all the time. But then when Peter the Great came around, he was able to get the church to finally banish them after them being,
So popular for 600 years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and being persecuted against by the church for that long too.
Mhm.
And so finally in the 17th century, they were banished along with all of their musical instruments.
And they were kind of like comedians with no bar is too high. Like they'd make fun of anyone. Everyone's fair game, right?
Yeah. And they had a lot of obscene language too.
Did they make fun of the church as well?
Oh, definitely.
I think the church wanted them gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whew.
Yeah.
And I think that's all we have time for.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us here today. We're glad you signed in, and this is Life in the Box.